Hello, you. Welcome back to Happy Hour. Today we have a classic single malt from way up north of Scotland. Stay tuned. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Happy Hour. Today we've got one of my favorite classic 12-year-old single malts. That just goes back with me personally for a long time to when I really started drinking Scotch, getting into Scotch a little bit. And that's the Old Pulteney 12-year-old. So yeah, it's kind of, I'm surprised I haven't done a video on this so far. I know I don't have that many videos out, but I think I maybe take for granted a little bit the Old Pulteney. But just a little history with me. So Old Pulteney was one of the first. It was really one of the first maybe handful of single malts that I bought just kind of on a whim, like when I really wanted to start kind of digging in and, before I, did a ton of research and kind of learning about brands, the standard brands, the Glenlivet, the Glenfiddich. And I kind of just, when I started, I kind of went to the liquor store when I started to really get interested, and I would just grab something that caught my eye. That was a reasonable price. Like I wasn't spending hundreds of dollars on bottles of Scotch back in the day, but I just wanted to try new things that and on a whim, I was like, let's grab this and I'll try this. And this one kind of caught my eye. The old 10 or the old labeling for Old Pulteney 12. Was it a 10? I can't remember. I think it was a 10, yeah. But it had like a schooner or cuddy, an old sailing ship on the box or on the tin. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. It looks kind of old school. And it was the first single malt that I really remember. I think I read that it was, at that point, at least, it was the most northerly distillery in Scotland. I think there may be one or two now a little bit further north, but it's way up there. And it was the coastal malt, like it says right on there, with a maritime malt. So it had this maritime kind of look and feel to the bottle. I was like, it's kind of cool. Let's check it out. But it was the first whiskey that I tried that I could actually taste what it looked like, or what it was marketing itself as, I guess. And that is that kind of salty salinity kind of sea air. So that really intrigued me. I just thought it was so cool. I'm like, wow, there's a big sailing ship on it. It's way up north. I could picture the coast and, the sea air and the cold weather. And when I tasted my first sip of it, I was like, wow, I can taste this kind of salty sea air. So anyways, I thought that was really cool. I think it's a great whiskey. I enjoy it. Spoiler alert. This is probably my 10th bottle of it, of the 12-year-old. And, yeah, it's really, really good, but let's just pour a little bit and see if I can kind of give you a few notes on the fly. I could probably do it from memory, but I'm going to pour one anyways. So yeah, Old Pulteney 12-year-old. They have a few more. The core range, I think, has changed relatively recently. I think it used to be the 12-year-old, the 17-year-old. I actually still have a couple of unopened bottles of the 17-year-old, which I'm saving for something. I don't know what, because they don't make it anymore. They do the 12-year-old, they do a 15-year-old, and 18-year-old. So instead of the 17, I think they bumped it to the 18-year-old. And I think there's a 25-year-old too. But I think it used to be 12, 17, 21, something like that. The core range has changed, and I know the 17 specifically has been swapped out for the 18. The 12, I think, is the same. I don't have an old one to a new one to compare side by side. But, this is a new bottle. Is it a new bottle? Yeah, this is a new bottling. And it reminds me of everything that I've always enjoyed about it over the years. So if it's changed, it's been quite minor. So, on the nose. Yeah, I get that salty sea air. It's so good. And that may sound like a bit of a turnoff, like salty sea air. Why do I want that in my whiskey? But any of you have tried any Islay scotches? Obviously, there's that smoky punch that go with it. But there's that kind of, yeah, it's just like a salty sea air. I don't know how else, maybe like a salted caramel or something. Like there's really just, it's a very unique scent. But then you get the obvious. So this is a fully bourbon cask. There's no sherry cask influence in this whiskey. It's all bourbon the whole way. But you get the classic kind of bourbon aged single malt smells. They get that kind of apples and citrus and real heavy sweetness from the barrel. So it's that sweet, salty. Yeah, I don't know. It's so fantastic. Like the weird thing about Old Pulteney is, you know, a lot of my reviews, and I think in general, like once you start to get into whiskey more, you start to really appreciate the higher ABVs. You start to appreciate the non-chill filtered and, you know, all those kind of buzzwords we start to learn. And really, I don't want to say they're not just buzzwords. They're fundamentally, they could point you in the direction of generally well-made whiskeys. When you see those types of characteristics or those types of, how do I say, those types of manufacturing processes, so to speak. This is 40%. I'm sure it's chill filtered. It's kind of like it doesn't really tick all those standard boxes that you would normally ideally look for. But I don't really care because it's just friggin' good. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right? Is that you enjoy it. So, all right, enough yakking. Yeah, I don't know. I love it. And you know what what I like about it the most, so it's not super complex, but that salty kind of sea air smell with the fruity, with the very sweet, bourbony, citrusy, appley notes. It follows right through to the palate. It's basically what you get on the nose, you get on the palate. It's obviously relatively easy to drink at 40%. It's not super bitey. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's been my daily, I say daily, I don't drink every day. It's been my kind of go-to if I want something just a little bit outside the norm, but just something that I feel comfortable with and I know that I'm gonna enjoy. I haven't had, again, it's been consistent. So like this goes back with me for almost 20 years now. Jesus, am I that old? Yeah. Yeah, about 20 years, in my 20s, 20 plus years. And yeah, I don't remember ever having it along the time where I didn't like it or it was like, did something change here? So I think it's been pretty consistent over the years, but it's just good whiskey. Now, the one part that does suck about it, I guess like everything else, over 20 years, obviously prices are going to increase, but I kind of remember buying this when I was first back in Canada, and I kind of remember it being only like 40 bucks Canadian, which is ridiculous. That's like $9 American. That's not, but that's like, that was pretty expensive for me at the time, but now I think it's close to, I got a buddy in Canada, I think, which he enjoys it as well. I think he says it's like 70 bucks or 80 bucks there now. But here it's even gone up, I think a good $10 over the years. I kind of vaguely remember buying this for around $35 or $38, you know, within the last 7, 8 years. But now it's $45 a bottle, at least at Binny's. So again, prices vary, I don't know, but it's definitely gone up at least, I would say, 8 to 10 bucks over the last several years for me. But I don't know if that's standard inflation. I don't know what it is. But at $45, I'm still okay with it. Again, it's chill filtered. It's 40%. I'd love it to be a little bit higher, but I don't really care. 45 bucks, I can live with it. Something that I enjoy, that I know I'm gonna enjoy every time I crack it open and pour it, and I know what I'm gonna get that salty sweetness. I'm cool with it. So I probably gave it away in the beginning. I really, really like this whiskey. I'm gonna rate this is a 9 out of 10 for me. As far as 12-year-olds go, kind of, you know, that $50 and under 12-year-olds, this is one of my go-tos right now. This is one of two strictly bourbon cask or bourbon aged single malts. I really have two that I go to the most. This one and another one, which I'm going to do a review on, so I won't spoil it. But you know, sherry cask stuff can open up a little bit into some other brands and some names. But yeah, just if I want a good old fashioned 12-year-old bourbon aged single malt whiskey, this is what I grab more times than not. So yeah, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. I love it. If you haven't heard of it, you probably heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, you should probably pick up a bottle. If you like a good straight ahead 12-year-old with a little bit of a different twist to it, again, with that kind of saltiness to it, I think, it's definitely worth a try. I recommend pick up a bottle and enjoy it. So thanks for watching Happy Hour. I'm going to enjoy this one and maybe another or 2 or 3, and we'll go from there. So cheers. Stay tuned for another video. Thanks.